Well, great. So I am really excited to be here with all of you. We know that as the economic, the community, and the financial impacts of climate change grow, that Minnesota must continue to take steps to rapidly accelerate our transition to reducing greenhouse gases and to transition to a clean energy economy. As part of that effort, we passed the 100% bill earlier this session, and we know we need to work on the funding and the financing to make sure that we rapidly accelerate the adoption of clean energy. And that's what our bill, Senator Zhang and my bill, which is House File 2336 and Senate File 2301, is intended to do. It sets up the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority, which is a publicly accountable, mission-driven finance authority with the purpose of accelerating the adoption of proven clean energy technology and increasing the speed and the scale of project implementation to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The authority's essential objectives are to address the gaps in the market when it comes to accessing financing for clean energy technology, to serve the communities and the markets that have been underserved and most impacted by climate change and the climate crisis, and to ensure that our transition to clean energy protects both the rights of the workers and consumers and creates good family-sustaining jobs for Minnesotans across the state. This bill builds on a model of other successful green banks that other states have implemented, being able to leverage public dollars for significant private investments in job-creating clean energy. 17 states now have clean energy financing authorities leveraging $2.5 billion in public funds to generate over $9 billion in total investment in clean energy technology. That's nearly a 4-to-1 return on investment. In 2021, the McKnight Foundation conducted a study identifying critical gaps here in Minnesota, market barriers to accessing clean energy financing, including project size, upfront costs, longer payback periods, all the things that are sort of preventing us from achieving the size and the scale that we need to tackle our climate crisis. They found that a financing authority just like this will play a critical role in helping Minnesota meet our climate goals. And the time to do this is now. Through the IRA's greenhouse gas reduction funds, there's a $20 billion pot of money that's available for state-based entities and state efforts to support the deployment of emissions-reducing technologies. And a back-of-the-envelope estimate would put Minnesota's per capita share at about $350 million to leverage for $1 billion or more dollars more. This is a significant opportunity that we're talking about to use both state and federal dollars to create significant private investment in clean energy across the state. And so with that, I'd like to introduce Umbra Naqvi with Lake Street Solar to discuss the real opportunities we have with this Climate Innovation Finance Authority.
Good morning, everybody. And thank you for giving us the opportunity. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I started Lake Street Solar. We started this company with a mission to bring solar installations to the Lake Street corridor businesses on and around Lake Street for obvious reasons. And our focus is to bring solar installations to BIPOC businesses and underserved communities because they typically don't have access to the federal income tax credit that is really driving, at least to date, the solar businesses. In our model, we provide the upfront capital for these projects, and over a 7 to 10-year period, these businesses pay us back through the tax to the credit that they receive from the production from these arrays. And at that time, we would give the ownership of these solar arrays back to those customers, those individuals. This really is a great way for us to provide the initial capital and give the opportunity for solar to get deployed. You know, one of the bigger challenges for us is that our projects are too small, and they're geared towards communities that typically don't have access to the credit that is required. and that's where this company will come in. I've talked to many investors, who say if you need $10 million, we can help you, but if you're looking for $1 million for these 12 projects on Lake Street, it's just too much work. So we're trying to make sure that we're available there to help, and this would shore up, somebody like us really nicely. Thank you. I'd like, sorry, I'm new to this. I'd like to invite Sarah Wolf from MNIPL to say a few words. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Representative Greenman and Senator Zhang, for introducing this bill. My name is Sarah Wolf. I'm with the Minnesota Interfaith Power and Light. Last week, the United Nations highlighted another report that tells us about the dire emergency we're in with increasing our action for climate at the speed that we have not seen yet. We know more action is needed. This was really the decade that matters. And for us in Minnesota, this is a really important year. We're setting great policy that is taking us the direction we need to go, but we need to be able to fund that transition equitably so everyone has access to the benefits of this transition. If you have just a particular fund available of $10 million, you can get $10 million worth of projects. If you're able to recycle those through loans, you're able to increase the number of projects. And if you're able to leverage that with other private investment, you're able to really multiply the available funds you have for investment. You're able to do more with projects. And you're able to do them in a terrific way that reduces greenhouse gas emissions, that helps support good business practices, good building practices, and good labor practices. So we really appreciate the opportunity we have with this Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority to really jumpstart the equitable transition we need and build out on the great work that's already happening and do even more. Thank you.
And good morning, everybody. We are very excited for everyone gathered here today to support our Representative Greenman and my legislation to put in the Minnesota Climate Innovation Finance Authority. It's an opportunity, as mentioned earlier, to pool resources to leverage federal and private funding to bring in the clean energy transition here in Minnesota to help fill the gaps that are in existence. Right now, we are proud to see that our legislation is in the omnibus bills. We had made an initial ask of $45 million to jumpstart this quasi-public governmental entity to have a board of directors that consists of both government expert and community experts that can help guide this to bring in equitable environmental justice, but also the expertise in clean, green energy financing. And so we're very excited about this opportunity to also be part of a group of states that have already implemented similar legislation throughout the United States here. We hope that Minnesota can become the next member in this community of green financing to really fill in the gaps and complement the great work that is happening here in Minnesota. And with that, we open it up for any questions that folks might have for us or the legislation or our advocates.
I hope we have that few questions on the floor.
Yeah.
I think we can just close it.
Yes, and but with that, we thank you all for taking the time to join us here, and we're very excited to there's a question.
At what levels is the Innovative Finance Authority funded in the House and Senate?
Yeah, I don't know.
So in the omnibus bills at this point, given the targets of both of the energy and climate bills, in the House, we are at $20 million funded. There is additional resources sort of in the budget and budget targets for matching a bunch of federal programs. And so we're hoping, and we know it's a fluid process, but right now our target is $20 million.
And in the Senate, we have a budget target of 5 million, but we're trying to work and with leadership to see if we could get more funding for our project here. And we look forward to continuing on our work to get this project going.
And what we know is that, and I think that, as Senator Zhang said, is that we are, every dollar that we get in state funding, we can leverage both for federal dollars and, most importantly, to leverage private dollars. So we're looking at that 4-to-1 or more that we've seen in other states, and hoping that we can have a sizable and healthy seed grant so that we can attract some of the greenhouse gas reduction funds, as well as start to move, as we think we heard from Mr. Nakvi. There's lots of projects right now that are there, ready to be funded and financed, and just need the push and the help from the state with some of the credit financing enhancement tools to bring in some private capital. So.
Now, the banking sector has not gotten a lot of great press recently. Can you talk a little bit about the oversight that's built into the bill and why Minnesotans, what sort of accountability there will be to make sure everything is square and accounted for?
Yeah, so this isn't a bank per se. We don't hold deposits, or we don't take in deposits for the Climate Finance Authority. But we do have an independent audit written into the language. It is subject to, the federal regulations, state regulations, consumer protection lending. We have a robust, consumer protection section that we have put in the legislation. And so we had addressed some of those concerns, as we were working through the bill with various stakeholders with the Department of Commerce. And so we are very excited about where we're at with the legislation and all the hard work that's been put in. And I don't know if Representative Greenman have anything else to add to that?
No.
Yeah.
I think that we are really excited about this. I'm looking at the clock, and actually I think we all have to run since it's 9:02. But I think we have built a really strong foundation because of the input of stakeholders, the ecosystem of folks who've been in this space a long time, including working with legal aid and others on consumer protections. So I think we feel really good that we have a strong entity that is both going to lend for impact and also protect consumers and state and federal resources. Great.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much. I gotta go.
Yes.